Republicans, let's send Joe Biden back
One
to his...
thing perfectly clear. Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kai Madison Trump. I am the granddaughter of Donald Trump.
But none of that prepares you as a daughter-in-law to watch in real time.
The whole world saw your strength as you stood up.
Fire.
You wiped the blood off
incredible,
your face.
patriotic
and you put
rally
your fist in the
turned
air
into a tragedy.
in a moment that will be
On a
remembered
field
as
in
one
I'm
of
not
the most
supposed to be here
courageous
A
tonight.
brave firefighter
Not supposed
died.
to be here. Thank you. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
6 days after surviving an assassination attempt, former United States President Donald Trump took the stage at the Republican National Convention to accept the party nomination for the presidency. He went on to speak for more than 90 minutes, the longest acceptance speech in modern history. After a tumultuous few weeks that have upended American politics, Donald Trump pitched a message of unity and strength as he accepted the Republican presidential nomination for the third time on Thursday night. What was meant to be a unifying speech, however, veered into familiar grievances as Trump denounced undocumented immigration, political witch hunts, and election fraud. Still, it was a crowning moment for Trump, complete with lots of fanfare. The speech was the final event of the party convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Republicans rallied around him, praising him on and off stage. That show of support for Trump offered a stark contrast with the political troubles of President Joe Biden, who is facing mounting calls from his fellow Democrats to drop out of the race after a disastrous debate performance last month. But in Milwaukee, the night was all about Trump. Biden was seldom mentioned by name. Here are 5 key takeaways from the fourth and final night of the Republican National Convention.
We will have an incredible victory, and we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history.
One of the most highly anticipated parts of Thursday's speech was Trump's account of his assassination attempt, and he led his remarks by describing his experience, pledging never to revisit it. Trump's brush with death was a frequent theme throughout the 4-day convention. Several Republican speakers on Thursday suggested that Trump survived the assassination attempt last week due to divine intervention, portraying the former president as a messianic figure. Trump began his speech by recounting his experience of last Saturday's attack.
As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life.
He told the assembled Republican delegates. He said he turned his head slightly to view a chart about immigration projected on a teleprompter screen.
In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to...
Trump called the Secret Service agents who rushed the stage very brave.
Many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose, surrounded by Secret Service.
He credited the crowd at the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania for not panicking and causing a stampede.
In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual. This massive crowd.
Although his speech contained sharp criticism of Joe Biden's policies on several fronts, Trump made just one direct mention of his rival's name, calling him one of the worst presidents in history, as he frequently does at rallies.
Added them up, they will not have done the damage that Biden has done. Only going to use the term once. Biden. I'm not going to use the name anymore, just one time. The damage that he's done to this country is unthinkable. It's unthinkable.
Uncertainty continues to swirl around the future of President Biden's candidacy. On Wednesday, he was diagnosed with COVID-19 and is recuperating at his home in Delaware. President Biden has vowed to stay in the race, despite reports that leading Democrats, including Barack Obama, are now questioning his position, and a growing number of congressional lawmakers have urged him to step aside for a new candidate. According to Mark Halperin, a commentator for the conservative Newsmax TV, multiple sources outline the apparent state of play on Biden at this time is plans to announce withdrawal from nomination as early as this weekend, with Sunday most likely. John Meacham polishing up remarks, Biden will not resign the presidency. Biden will not endorse Harris. Open convention with Harris and about 3 others. Superdelegates will not be allowed to vote on first ballot. Harris is vetting at least 4 possible running mates, including Andy Beshear and possibly Josh Shapiro. During his speech, Trump claimed that the country has had the worst inflation ever under the Biden administration.
We are indeed a nation in decline. We have an inflation crisis that is making life unaffordable, ravaging the incomes of working and low-income families, and crushing, just simply crushing our people like never before. They've never seen anything like it.
This claim is misleading. Biden was in office for record-high inflation in June 2022, when it stood at 9.1%, the highest since 1981. But inflation has also since come down in the past 2 years. Entering the familiar territory of 2020 election denialism for the first time, Trump recited a long list of policy proposals and let slip.
With us, and then we had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID to cheat. We're never going to let it happen again.
The evidence that the 2020 election was not marred by fraud is overwhelming. Trump claimed hundreds of thousands of people were dying because of fentanyl being brought into the U.S. through illegal immigration. The claim is false.
We also have an illegal immigration crisis, and it's taking place right now as we sit here in this beautiful arena. It's a massive invasion at our southern border that has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and destruction to communities all across our land. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
The number of overdose deaths in 2023 involving synthetic opioids, including fentanyl, was roughly 75,000. The CDC said in May that roughly 107,000 people died from a drug overdose, but that is for any drug not synthetics being brought across the southern border. Despite Republican claims, illicit opioids are overwhelmingly smuggled over the border by U.S. citizens, not migrants.
What's better than that? We have to stop the invasion into our country that's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. We're not going to let that happen.
Trump pointed to a chart, the one he said he was looking at while a gunman fired a shot at the stage during his Pennsylvania rally last Saturday, and that he says saved his life, to show that illegal immigration was at record lows in 2021 during his presidency.
But you can see on the chart that saved my life, that was the chart that saved my life. I said, look it, I'm so proud of it. I think it's one of the greatest, it was done by the Border Patrol, one of the greatest charts I've ever seen. It showed everything just like that. You know the chart. Oh, there it is. That's pretty good. Wow. Last time I put up that chart, I never really got to look at it. But without that chart, I would not be here today. Never got to look at it. I said, you got to see this chart. I was so proud of it, and by the time I got to there, I never got to see it that day. But I'm seeing it now, and I was very proud. And if you look at the arrow on the bottom, that's the lowest level, the one on the bottom, heavy red arrow. That's the lowest level of illegal immigrants ever to come into our country in recorded history, right there. Right there. And that was my last week in office. And then you see what happened after I left. Look at the rest. And if you go out a little bit further, it's getting to be a little bit old, but I love it anyway, right? But you can go much higher with those numbers. Look what happened right after that. The invasion began. We had the opposite. We stopped the invasion, but the invasion that we stopped was peanuts.
The chart reportedly comes from a graphic created by the office of Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson's office and purports to show monthly encounters with migrants on the U.S.'s southwest border. The claim is misleading. According to PolitiFact, an arrow on the chart pointing to a low point in encounters is falsely labeled Trump leaves office. In fact, this low point was recorded in 2020 at the height of COVID lockdowns. Later, encounters rose. Trump left office in 2021. The former president has been a divisive figure in U.S. politics ever since he came down the escalator at Trump Tower in New York to announce his run for the presidency in 2015. During that speech, he called Mexican undocumented immigrants criminals and rapists. Soon afterwards, he pledged to impose a ban on visitors from 6 Muslim-majority countries. As president, he followed through on that plan, imposing what came to be known as the Muslim ban through a series of executive orders. That ban, upheld by the Supreme Court in 2018, was ultimately overturned by Biden when he took office in 2021.
They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East. But we don't know, because we have no protection and we have no competence. We don't know what's happening. And it's got to stop. And it's got to stop fast.
But on Thursday, Trump, who is usually combative on stage, initially tried to present himself as a unifying figure. He rejected demonizing political opponents and said he would be a president for all Americans. Trump generally attempted to continue the overall theme of national unity that kept coming up this week at the party convention. But at several points, he digressed into sharp attacks on Democrats and their policies.
We will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed. We must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America. So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you.
Still, he could not resist ad-libbed lines criticizing top Democrats and the leadership of the United Auto Workers, one of the country's largest unions. In addition to his criticism of President Biden, he called Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker, crazy.
And Don last night was incredible. They went through so much trouble. They got subpoenaed more than any people probably in the history of the United States. Every week they get another subpoena from the Democrats, crazy Nancy Pelosi, the whole thing, just boom, boom, boom. They've got to stop that because they're destroying our country. We have to work on making America great again, not on beating people. And we won. We beat them in all. We beat them on the impeachments. We beat them on indictments. We beat them. But the time that you have to spend, if they would devote that genius to helping our country, we'd have a much stronger and better country.
Much as it has been throughout his political career, immigration was at the top of the agenda. He called illegal immigration an invasion that is killing hundreds of thousands of people a year, and promised the largest deportation operation in the history of our country, even larger than that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower many years ago. More than 1 million Mexican immigrants were deported from the U.S. in 1954. In a lengthy section of one of the longest convention speeches in memory, he blamed immigrants for crime and said,
"But we become a dumping ground for the rest of the world, which is laughing at us. They think we're stupid. And they can't believe that they're getting away with what they're getting away with, but they're not going to be getting away with it for long." That's what I can tell you.
The convention ended with the usual family gathering on stage. But Trump's clan is more than just a show. They are now truly Republican power brokers with the potential makings of a dynasty. Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr., were given high-profile speaking slots, and Don Jr. was reportedly a key influence over his father's vice presidential pick. Earlier in the week, Eric's wife, Laura Trump, took to the stage. As co-chair of the Republican National Committee, she will play a key role in the election campaign. The convention also heard from little-known members of the clan, such as his eldest granddaughter, Kai Trump, a keen golfer. Age 17, she will not be eligible to vote in November. Other Trumps had much lower profiles. Trump's daughter, Ivanka, who, with her husband Jared Kushner, only attended the convention on the final day. Once a close advisor to her father, she left politics after her father departed the White House. Melania Trump turned up on the final night in a rare public appearance, but she did not take to the podium to speak as U.S. candidates' wives usually do on such occasions.